defence industry is a key enabler to growing a strong and diversified economy. And so it's an absolute pleasure to be here at this event. I think the fact that we've got a defence community, a defence industry community coming together to try and understand each other and how they can better position themselves into the supply chain of big Commonwealth defence projects is important for Western Australia, and it is very important for jobs growth.
I think there's a lot of crossover between defence and the resources business, and increasingly so, and that's largely because the resources world, particularly mining, is becoming far more complex. And in defence engineering, we're used to big complex projects with systems of systems, and that's a sort of, in Nova Systems, that's the sort of skills we're taking into the mining industry. So our defence systems engineering, our test and evaluation, our project planning, they're the sorts of things which are sort of in some ways new to the mining industry, but they're having to take on board those skills because of the increasing complexity of their projects.
I've got a great interest in the area of defence and oil and gas coming together to look at synergies, given that we've got major assets in our region such as the AMC, obviously Fremantle Port and the future outer harbour, Wanana industry area, Jandakot City, so we've got some key assets within those industry sectors that we need to make sure we leverage off.
Defence is one of those critical pieces as part of a bigger puzzle. If you look at Henderson, where it's strategically located, very, very close to the naval base at Garden Island, the synergies that defence has back with the mining and oil and gas sector, we've really got two industries working out of that one precinct. So where it grew out of the early days of shipbuilding, the likes of Austal, it's morphed into something more substantial now. And I think it's one of the jewels in the crown for West Australia's industrial capacity.
I would like to welcome you all to this executive breakfast on synergies for the defence and resources sectors, prospects for collaboration. Today I would like to acknowledge our co-event partner, Serge De Silva, Editor-in-Chief, WA Defence Review, and a very good friend of AmCham. We have our moderator, Colleen Yates, CEO, Regional Development Australia Perth. Guest speaker, John Meldrum, Engineering Manager, Sustainment Maritime, BAE Systems Australia. Guest speaker, Eric Hofmann, Managing Director of Hofmann Engineering. Guest speaker, Darshi Ganesh Oates, Strategic Partnerships, South Metro TAFE. Guest speaker, Professor Erica Tetcherer, Director, Oceans Institute, UWA. We also have with us our diamond sponsor, Watt Maritime Engineering Services. Our platinum sponsors, Defence West, Maritime Defence Solutions, Mining and Hydraulic Supplies, and the University of Western Australia. Our gold sponsors are Armoured Technology Australia, Southwest Group, Takel Group, Australian Commercial Marine Group. Our silver sponsors, Regional Development Australia Perth, Launch Publishing Group, Society for Underwater Technology, and AIDN.
Hello everyone, and first up I'd like to acknowledge the elders upon the land which we are meeting today. My name is Colleen Yates. I'm CEO of Regional Development Australia Perth. We're a Commonwealth initiative, and our mandate is primarily economic development, though we have gone through a review recently through all the RDAs, and our mandate has now been expanded to look after trying to increase investment into our regions across all of the RDAs. We have a commission report called Security and Defence in Western Australia, an economic perspective. And what we wanted to try and do with that is look at what could exist, or what do we have in Western Australia that could leverage additional opportunities across defence and address some of the issues that we have here in WA. On the tables are a printout of some of the recommendations out of that report, and the report will be available shortly.
This morning I just want to briefly give you my perspective of the synergies between the defence sectors and the work in the resources sector. And I'm coming from the perspective of a global defence company who decided to diversify and undertake commercial work in the energy and resources sector. The biggest hurdle actually was convincing the majors that BAE Systems, known as defence business, could deliver what was required. After nearly a year of trying, we actually eventually got a job with the CKJV. Now, since that time, we've done a number of jobs, but in that journey and that transition, we thought that the defence, we knew everything, but however, we were introduced to the notion of significantly challenging schedules and really detailed material and well traceability requirements, and actually close supervision by our clients. Well, so much for the differences. How are they similar? Obviously safety is of paramount importance in both sectors. Both environments require work in accordance with complex standards and specifications. For those that have worked with military standards, there's a lot of them, and for those that have worked in oil and gas, there are a lot of them as well, and not only are there a lot of them, but the majors have a nasty habit of writing their own. Dimensional control is extremely important. When you're building a ship or an aeroplane, you need to make sure that it's dimensionally correct, and it's equally challenging and important in fabrication work for oil and gas. And detailed records of work completion are required. So in summary, in both sectors, there's difficulty in entering. For us it was, well, what do you know about subsea engineering? You only build ships and aeroplanes. And coming the other question, the question is, I'm sure many have already experienced it, the question is, well, what do you know about defence engineering? But when you get through those differences and you find the way to break into the right place in the supply chain in both sectors, then you find that the trade skill sets, the quality management skills, the materials management skills and the project management skills required to deliver are well aligned.
We do know that the ocean environment is a very busy space, and defence and resources have to share that space. It's a large space in many contexts, but it is still a shared space, and we need to be very mindful of that. But because of the very nature of that space, there is a lot that we can learn from the research that's been done. Data we're collecting about the ocean environment itself, currents, temperature changes, storm surges, extreme weather events. Now, this is using really important technology, remote sensing technology. But I think the lesson to be learned here, because we already know that defence uses that same remote sensing technology, the lesson to be learned here is how we deal with this data and how we share data. A lot of military data is confidential, but if we take that aspect out and we just look at the routine data that's being collected for safety, for routine operations, increasingly the resources industry has recognised the importance of social impact, engagement with communities, ensuring that we explain our operations and engage directly with our stakeholders, even those that we know may not agree with what we're doing. So there's a picture here of Greenpeace when the Red Spar oil rig was looking to be decommissioned. A lot of protest around that, a lot of conflict with communities. And arguably some of that conflict could be avoided by better engaging with our stakeholders who have interests in what we're doing. Historically, neither defence nor the oil and gas and resources industries have engaged very much with researchers, for example, who might be drawn from disciplines like sociology. And of course, for defence, there's the added issue of confidentiality of some of the activities that are being done. But there are many things that defence is doing, many ways in which to engage with people and to bring those people along with you, bring communities with you. So public engagement and acquiring a special licence to operate will become very important in the future.
We're a family company started by my father in 1969. We've been working on valves and components of submarines ever since the Oberon class, so many years ago. And I was actually at a defence function like this about 8 years ago with the pleasure to meet with Kim Gillis. And Kim said to me, "Eric, we've got a problem. I look after 6 submarines, they all have generator problems. And these generators, and this is where the link to the resource sector, are ideally identical to what's on a haul pack truck on the wheel motors. So we said, let us have a look, and he was told it was going to take 6 months. We found a way to do it in 5 weeks by on-site machining of the generator. We machined these brackets off. We managed to pull the stator and the rotor out, rewound it outside, put it back in, and it was so successful we actually got named in Parliament. And I can remember Kim Gillis came at the meeting and he said, "Picture, we've just gone to war and we have to get this to happen because this is serious." So with the mining companies, we're used to working 24/7, all facilities, because if a ball mill or a sag mill goes down, it's up to $1 million an hour. So you can imagine there's a bit of pressure to get it running again. So this is basically how we did this project. And through that, we actually, it's led to a lot of other components. And what we've found in doing these components, it's given the government now has confidence to allow companies like us to re-engineer and product improve parts. So what we do grassroots engineering. So we'll take a component, we'll spectroanalyse the steel to 6 decimal places, we'll metallurgically analyse it, we'll do finite element analysis, we'll draw it. We've got over 7 coordinate measuring machines, so we can measure it to microns. And from that, we actually, literally, we can confidently say there's anything in the defence industry you need built, we will build it.
We have about 30,000 students that enrol with us every year, and 14 campuses, including a campus at Henderson. In 2011-12, the resources sector ramped up. We also established what we call the ASEP board, and this is how we engage with industry on a formal basis. So we had all of those members around the table, and we had standard footprints that the oil and gas sector needed in terms of qualifications and skill sets. And that training standard footprint and the numbers and volumes that each company needed was discussed around the ASEP board. But how do we handle IP? Well, any customisation that each of these companies might have needed was taken off the table and discussed outside of that forum, and customisation was done on a fee-for-service basis. So you had the standard footprint and then customisation as such. I can attest to the fact there has been success in this model, and it is a model that we would consider emulating for the naval shipbuilding industry as well as the defence sector. There's a lot of qualifications and skills that are already being trained, and their portability to the defence sector, is pretty evident. So I guess, the question for us is how would we respond? Well, we already have a whole range of strategies in place to retrain existing staff, existing workers from one sector to the other. It is something that's our core bread and butter. We do this all the time. With fast-track programs, that's a really common one and it is one of the programs that's currently being looked at for the defence sector, and that is about making sure that we can reduce the amount of time needed safely to provide a competency for someone to go and work in another sector.